I often find myself wanting to escape reality. And I'm not just talking about immersing myself in a work of fiction. I myself want to exist outside of reality, and I try to do so whenever I can. You can experience it by looking through a window. The world beyond the window can feel so distant. That outside world is surrounding you, but you are completely separate from it. And that feeling of isolation from the rest of the world has an eerie sense of calmness, of freedom from the constant struggle of life, a moment of respite. I find a lot of weight to moments like this. Think of the panel in Berserk of Guts just looking off into the abyssal night sky. There is no glass wall physically separating Guts here, but the scene still captures that feeling, as for a brief period of time, Guts can exist within his own mind, distinct from the ongoings of the outside world. There's also the bar in Fear and Hunger Termina. One lonely little bar in the city of Prehevel allows the characters a break from the horrors outside. It's such a stark contrast, hearing that relaxing Prehevel bop for the first time, in a game where every second has been filled with paranoia and unease. The relative safety in this room, as compared to the unending madness outside, gives it a very unique feeling, almost as if it is entirely self-contained, separate from the rest of the city. A sanctuary surrounded by a cruel and unforgiving world, but ultimately free from it. A medium that really captures this sensation is liminal spaces. These infinite, absurd places, seemingly generated from the subconscious ideas associated with real locations from our memories, can be both comforting and unsettling. I still think about the uneasy feeling the Backrooms image gave me way back when. I found the idea of being trapped within its endless, monotone set of rooms to be a nightmare. You can wander its halls endlessly, but you will never find any meaning in its vast, repetitive emptiness, like a physical manifestation of being trapped in a gray, monotonous life. And while that is almost the exact opposite feeling, the lack of anyone or anything or even time itself in these sorts of spaces separates you from all of those things. I remember the eerie sensation of roaming around the hallways of a school building while attending night classes there. The building's layout seemed as if someone had thrown rooms anywhere they could fit them, giving off a sense of directionlessness while navigating it. These oddities were less noticeable in the day, but at night the atmosphere was unavoidable. Almost no one is around since few classes are scheduled at such late hours. Most rooms are completely dark and empty. The lights in the hallways are defaulted to off until someone walks by. Sometimes you'll walk through a hall only to be blocked off by a very out-of-place locked door. Other times you'll have to traverse a completely unrelated section of the building to get to where you're supposed to be. And the whole thing is almost entirely silent, other than, of course, a faint electric hum. It felt like a different reality, or something beyond the reality that was supposed to be. School should be filled with students scrambling to get to class and professors giving lectures. It should be filled with clubs and events, social gatherings and exams. There's a constant movement to school. Whatever this was still in void, lacking in any of the traits that made up a living school setting. And yet, without all of those aspects, the stresses that came with them also disappeared. It's within the liminal that we are given this break from reality. Within the liminal, there are no set endpoints. You don't know what to expect or where you'll end up, but in that sense, the journey never stops, the deadline never comes, and the schedule doesn't matter. The anxiety of everything that will happen disappears because none of it will ever come to be. Time has stopped. The outside world has stopped. No clear beginning, no clear end. Just you, roaming around in whatever you make of this secluded space. Working a 9 to 5 is pretty miserable. It drains the soul. For 5 days I have to put on this clown show, behaving performatively for the interests of other people, losing all sense of self in the process. And by the time I've remembered who I was underneath it all, the weekend is already over, and it's time to go right back in again. Every week, every day, all of it panning out exactly the same way. This cycle doesn't give you any time to breathe, let alone think about anything beyond your immediate tasks. It is only in the time in between that you can actually find rest here. In the case of daily life, there are a few periods more liminal than the state of traveling. Whatever had to be done at the starting point, or whatever needs to be done at the destination, has no bearing on what is done in the time in between. It's easy to lose an hour just existing in this state of transit, without noticing even a second go by. I really enjoy traveling with no destination at all. No clear outcomes, no outside worries, just a walk or a drive or a ride into the unknown. Sure, eventually you'll end up somewhere, but wherever that may be is not of concern. There is an infinite world around you for only you to explore, completely outside the reality of your day-to-day. A game that really captures this feeling is Yume Nikki. Most of this game is just aimlessly wandering around in these surreal dreamscapes. There are no specific goals or endpoints, just the fully captured infinite time and space of a dream, and your freedom to explore that infinity. I suppose the dream world really is the ultimate escape, and thus the ultimate rest. In a dream, your only concern is the world within your own mind, as your physical body lies dormant in sleep. A dream that felt like an eternity could have happened while only a few moments passed in the real world. In theory, you can spend a lifetime in a dream, and it will have no effect on reality, or vice versa. All of the daily suffering and mundanity discarded and forgotten about, with an infinite imaginatory world taking its place. A world with no care for time or rules. Your own world for you to escape into and rest within. I guess if I could live in a dream, I probably would. If I could live separately from space and time, I would. If I could have an infinite rest before the next point in life, I'd probably take it. Reality is tiring. Problems always seem to spring up without any of our control. Meaningless things take up our mental space and distract us from doing what we really want to do. And while we try to fix our lives crumbling before us, time runs without ever glancing back. It's a constant headache. The only way to rest is to escape it all, to separate yourself from the status quo, the everyday, from reality itself. The moments in between offer brief periods of escape, small fractions of time that we can truly exist within. But they aren't infinite. A single moment of escape isn't enough. I want to exist in that moment for an eternity. I have to exist in that moment for an eternity. I don't want time to move again. I don't want to return to that world. For now, I'll just keep looking out of that window. For now, I can rest.